You're listening to Swingology, a lifestyle podcast. Swingology is for adult entertainment only, and we're not licensed professionals. Our show features adult themes, language, and descriptions of sexual acts and desires. If you're under 18, this is not the show for you. The ideas and opinions expressed are those of the speaker only and not of any company or entity, and should not be considered professional advice. Now, let's stimulate your mind. Welcome back, everyone. I am Tori Kist.
And I am Steve Kist.
And we are your host of Swingology, a lifestyle podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things, toys.
Love that. Toys.
There was a time that I was a columnist for ASN magazine. If anyone has not heard of that, let me tell you, it is a lifestyle online magazine, and my column was all about toys. The name was Tori's Toys, was the name of my column. And so I have stopped writing for the time. I might go back into it, but now I'm going to be talking about toys with you. So Steve, talk to me about toys. What do you want to talk about with toys?
Well, I got to be honest with you, as a guy, I haven't had much use of toys. All the way up through high school, college, I started dabbling in, not so much for myself, but because someone else had one around, and then I kind of sure, let's use that for whatever you need it for, It's kind of like one of those things. It's like I didn't see a whole lot of use for them in the bedroom. They didn't do a whole lot for me, and at the end of the day, I didn't really date anyone that had a lot of use for them. So for me, for the majority of my life, I just didn't, they were kind of like, I knew they existed, but it was just something that was someone else's interest and not my own,
Okay, so this was the first part of your life, and now tell me about the second part of your life, because we just got in telling the entire listener base that you have a toy bag that you take to orgies. So what's in your toy bag, and talk to us about your toys.
The thing is, eventually you come across some people who have a little bit of hesitation at getting involved, or there's maybe a little bit of boundaries, or maybe they're just, they're a little shy. And so sometimes I've learned that bringing out a toy sparks interest and conversation. It's a great segue in some situations to get from point A to point B.
And sometimes people just play because there's toys. I've been in situations where the only reason why I was playing in that situation is because there were toys involved, and if there were no toys, then I would not be playing. So it was the toys that brought me out of my shell.
Mm-hmm. My wife took me to an adult toy store. I don't know, it was our first year into our marriage, and we kind of just went just because we hadn't been before, and we were like, why not? I remember going inside, and my wife was telling me about her first toy and how much money she spent on it, and I should have a toy. And she's like, if you had a toy, what toy would you get? I don't know. I must have walked around that whole store twice, and there wasn't really anything that was jumping out at me that I thought would enhance my own sexual pleasure. I do remember coming across a fleshlight and thinking, I've always been curious on what this would feel like, but not to the point where I'd spend this much money on one to find out how, to see how it actually feels. So, of course, my wife busts out her credit card, goes, cha-ching, well, you're about to find out. So I took it home. It was a fleshlight. It was one of those that was kind of encased in a hard plastic. Part of it you could squeeze tighter to give it more more resistance on the inside. The inside of the fleshlight was basically almost like a Jell-O mold.
I think it's silicone.
Yeah, probably. And of course, you would use that. It was almost like a handheld pocket pussy. I guess some people would call it that. I mean, I remember trying it and thinking, okay, I can kind of see it, why some people would use it. The downside of it is if you use it to successful completion, of course, now you've made an entire mess on the inside of your toy, and now it requires not a little bit, but a lot of cleaning maintenance to make sure you clean it up really well. Otherwise, you're kind of leaving a mess that's going to get disgusting after a while on the inside. It wasn't exactly the easiest thing to take apart and clean and maintain. And then the trade-off on, like, what does it actually add to my own pleasure wasn't a whole lot. Like, it did give an alternate sensation to kind of make me think like I wasn't touching myself, because it felt like something else was touching me. And if you close your eyes and you focus, you can like put yourself in another situation. But I think by and large, that one just wasn't for me.
Okay.
I've also tried, at the request of other play partners, a vibrating cock ring. Now that was interesting. So I remember playing with a play partner, and it was one of those times where you played one round, you took a 10 or 15 minute break. At the time, my penis wasn't exactly the most rock solid in the world, but it wasn't like useless either. It was like in an in-between, and I know some guys out there listening would understand. So she goes, hey, why don't you try this? And so she busts out this vibrating cock ring, and I'm like, I mean, I'll use it. I mean, where does it go? Like, does it go on a tip and then it goes inside you? I feel like it would just slide right off. She goes, no, just... So she put it on, she slides it all the way down to the base, it starts vibrating, and she goes, okay, now let's go. So I think the vibration of it was just enough for my body to like, hey, there's sensation here, and then get hard again. I think that was its ultimate purpose. But a secondary effect, as we were having intercourse, my dick was vibrating, of course, right? Inside her. And I think she liked that. So there was like a dual purpose to it. Other than it vibrating, I think the vibration desensitized me. I don't think I could come to orgasm while it's vibrating. I think that's a downside. How about you, love? What's your favorite toy?
My very first adult toy was purchased when I was 36 years old. And up until then, I had no adult toys and figured those things weren't for me. I had never orgasmed. I didn't really care about orgasming. I just figured I was one of those people in the world that don't do it. I didn't really care. Until I met one partner, and he was like, go buy an adult toy and play and orgasm. You're going to do this. You have to go do this. I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do this. So I was researching adult toys, and I figured, if I'm going to buy an adult toy, I'm going to buy the damn best good adult toy there is. And so I researched and found and came across the Womanizer Premium at the price of about $180.
Ouch.
I bought it because I figured, first of all, it came with a warranty. And second of all, you know what? If a $180 toy cannot make me orgasm, I'm not going to. And that's okay. The toy was delivered, and it stayed on my nightstand for a couple days before I even opened the packaging. Once I did open the packaging, wow. Okay, so it made me laugh, like hysterical. I was laughing because it tickled like crazy. And like, there was like 10 seconds maybe of intense laughter, and then I squirted, and I didn't know what squirting was, so I thought I peed, and I had orgasmed for the very first time. And I just, wow, it was incredible. And that became my best friend. So that was my only toy. And up until we met when we were at the store and you bought your fleshlight. Well, I bought you the fleshlight. You picked out a vibrator for me, and that was my first vibrator.
Yep. You asked me a question earlier, what was in my play bag? I mean, there's quite a few things in the play bag. The cock vibration ring is in the play bag. There's, I think, 2 butt plugs in the play bag. I think there's a secondary womanizer now that's in the play bag. Handcuffs in there. There's a strap-on dildo in there. There's lube, of course, condoms.
You also have toiletries like mouthwash, hairbrush, body wash, vaginal wash.
Yeah, I like
deodorant.
to keep the mouthwash and the vaginal wash in there because those are 2 big ones that usually people don't bring to a party, or there might not be at an LS club. And everyone's always thankful that those exist. So that's always a win to put in the play bag.
Steve, since you didn't have any toys for the first half of your life, what did you use?
My hands.
So your hands, I think the hands is the number one toy that's readily available. You just got to make sure it's clean before you use it.
That, and you know what? I found, I didn't take advantage of this when I was young. And I know there's movies where the young guys grab a bottle of lotion and the young guys do this and that. I didn't really do that when I was younger. I just used my hands and I used it dry, and it always worked for me. But when I got older, I started using silicone lubricant because I hated water-based. It was too sticky. Silicone lubricant, like, just dramatically changed the experience of masturbating. And I feel like if you're a guy out there and you haven't masturbated with silicone lubricant with your hand, you really need to go ahead and just give it a shot. You'll thank me later. So whenever I'm at a party, the toy that I see used the most is called the Cybon. It's the female straddles it like a horse, and there's a dildo on it or an appendage, and it vibrates, and a woman rides it, and they have an amazing time with it. Whenever you go to a party or someone's house, sometimes there's a table of toys, and you've got all these toys, and people come and they go, but I've never seen anyone grab like a cock ring or a vibrator off that table and actually use it. It's very rare. But if there's ever a Cybon at a party, normally there's a woman there that's never seen it, never ridden it, and of course they want to ride it. So I think a Cybon is a win for anyone that wants to throw a party or go to an event that is trying to break barriers or help the transition from going from a static conversational environment to a play environment.
Yeah, but can you imagine having to lug that thing around?
Yeah, I'm sure just like my play bag isn't exactly the latest thing in the world either.
People with all the luggage that come to orgies, they're the real, like, partiers.
I remember going to the country club for the first time. Remember that guy? He had a duffel bag that was larger than him, and he almost couldn't carry the thing because it was so heavy. I remember we asked him what was inside there. You know what he said? He must have pulled out like 6 bundles of ropes.
Wow.
You remember that?
No, I don't. I don't. I do remember seeing someone with a DeWalt-powered dildo.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. Yes.
Okay, so all of these toys in our hands can, lead us to orgasm and squirting.
Squirting's fun.
One of the things that Steve also brings along with his toy bag is a wet blanket. Steve, talk about your favorite thing here, the wet blanket.
The wet blanket changed the lifestyle for me. Normally, I'm sure there's people out there right now. You have a girlfriend, you have a wife, you have a play partner. They squirt a lot. So you always have 1 or 2 or 3 towels with you. They get wet, they soak through, the comforter gets wet, the sheets get wet. Hell, even sometimes a mattress gets wet. And you think it's worth it because, you know what? We all had a great experience. I don't mind washing the sheets after something like that. It's my penance to pay for an amazing time. But you don't have to do any of that. Once I realized that there was something called a wet blanket, in which you can literally pour a gallon of water on the blanket and it will not soak through. Once I realized the existence of the wet blanket became the thing that you bring to every party, that you keep at the edge of your bed, especially if you're with someone that does squirt like my wife. The wet blanket comes in various colors. It comes in a couple different sizes. I highly recommend it. It's like, $75? I think we've got 2 of them now. We know some people that got 2 or 3. It's a great idea to keep one at your house and then keep one in your go bag.
It's multiple purpose too, because if you have a dog and you like to take your dog on road trips or in the car to the dog park or something, you can layer the wet blanket in the back seat and it will protect your car from all the dirt and mud that the dog might track around. So it's also called a pet blanket, but we use it because I get wet. So it's a wet blanket.
This is something I didn't know was a thing until it happened accidentally with my wife. So there was one day when we were definitely pushing boundaries and we were all into it. And at one point, she was like accepting anal sex, which is not something she normally does. And not only was she accepting of it, she was all about it and she wanted more of it. At some point through the anal sex, she squirted and I was like, wait, what? That's a thing? I didn't know that was a thing.
It was amazing.
And then I was like, later, not at that moment, because I was like, my mind was blown. Later, I was thinking like, so that can happen. There's got to be a way to trigger it just like you would vaginally, right? Because there's a few guys that know like the secret or the method that is typically the most common way to get a woman to squirt.
It's not just guys.
Sure, girls too, of course. You're right. Women too. Women, in fact, some women love doing it, so you're right about that. But I have learned now that you can do the same motion that you would generate a vaginal squirting experience anally with the same hand movement. You just have to push a little harder to get there, because now you have to go through a couple more layers of flesh to get there. For the women that do like anal pleasure, if you're with a man that knows how to make you squirt vaginally, tell him to do the same kind of hand movements and push far enough up so that he can reach the same spot, and watch how that feels. That's all I'm going to say. That's your homework assignment.
We're not to homework yet. Homework's at the end of class. Okay, so here's something that I like to talk about. There are some women that can't squirt. And one of the most annoying things that those women have to deal with is the macho man syndrome.
Oh my God.
The man that comes around and says, oh yeah, challenge accepted. I'm going to make you squirt. And it's their duty in life for that day to try to make that woman squirt. And it's no longer fun at that point. Just let the woman be. Like, she probably doesn't even want to play with you at that point, because she's not a challenge. She's just there to have fun, and now you're not making it fun. So if a woman says, I don't squirt, accept it for what it is, and don't try to make her squirt. It is not your challenge, okay? Thank you. I'm off my pedestal there. My soapbox is done.
Actually, well, now that you're off your soapbox, I'm going to jump on it and be like, it ruins it for everyone else too. Don't be that guy that says, I am so great, I can do to your wife that no one else does. Maybe you are, all right? Maybe you are that guy. But let me tell you something. If you were that guy, you wouldn't have to brag about it. You wouldn't be bragging. You wouldn't have to, like, show your credentials to get through the door. You would just be badass, and then it would happen, and you'd be like, I was thinking I might be able to make your wife do that, but I didn't want to say anything until it actually happened.
So what you're saying is keep it to yourself and don't say it out loud.
Yes. For my wife, for example, if my wife doesn't have orgasms through penetrative sex, and I can't tell you how many guys have said, oh, well, that's because you haven't had sex with me.
Yep.
And then immediately my wife's turned off. She doesn't really want to engage in conversation with the guy anymore, especially now that he's being kind of like pressure about it, instead of continuing to a place where it could have led to equal play for everybody. Now my wife's like, well, if you want to play with that couple, that's on you now. I'm no longer interested. I'm going to go talk to some other friends over here. And then I'm looking at the guys like, yep, you missed out on that one. I don't know what to tell you. What, just because, I'm good? And I'm like, not because you're good. It's because, stimulate your mind. Get there first, and then you can play, Have some connection first, and don't be all braggy about your experience. Like, sure, talk about your experience, but don't think that you're going to be the best sex that someone's ever had. Because even to your own spouse, chances are you're not the best sex your spouse has ever had. Let's be honest.
So one thing that Steve likes to do is he likes to play dirty as he can get, especially with squirting. He likes a woman that can squirt if she can, and he'll just take that squirt and rub it all over her and swim in it. Talk to us about that.
I don't know. I've always been like a rough, animalistic, kind of like high energy, passionate, direct eye contact, whatever happens to the body kind of sex person. So if you're squirting and screaming and tears or whatever is going on, I'm all about it.
Passion. It's passion tears. Let's not scare people. It's not sad tears.
Well, I'm just thinking.
You said tears, babe.
Yeah, I know. When I said that, I was thinking of one of our best friend couples. She's like, I want to choke on your cock so hard that my tears come out my face, and I want you to wreck my face. That's what she calls it, wrecking her face. So she gets her face pretty, and then it's my job to wreck her face. And so that she's got all these tears and coming out and this mascara that runs everywhere. She loves that experience. She loves it. And if you don't get her to that place, it's not as great of an experience for her.
Then you didn't do your job right.
Right. So when I think of tears, that is the mental image that I come up with.
I didn't know that about her.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm always busy with her husband over on the other side of the room.
Sometimes people ask, well, I don't squirt. Like, okay, well, yeah, you might not. And no matter how hard anyone tries, you might never squirt. And for anyone out there that wants to try, go ahead, like try, but don't make it the goal. Like, spend a little time. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there are different types of squirting. Sometimes it just kind of like dribbles out, so it's minor. Sometimes it flows out like a river, or it dribbles out, or sometimes the woman just gets more wet, and they wonder, did I just squirt? Or I'm not sure. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. And so don't think that like everyone squirts the same way, because again, some women don't even orgasm, and so everyone's different.
I'm going to segue our conversation over to sexual positions, which is the last topic of today's episode. And last summer, we had the opportunity to be part of a room crawl experience at a swinger takeover. And we've talked about this in previous episodes. If you haven't listened to those, that's okay. And I actually did a video, and I posted it on YouTube, of our experience hosting the room crawl. And the room crawl theme was back to school. And they had the visitors to our room had a homework assignment. Had an assignment when they entered their room that they would show us their favorite sexual position, and then they can go take their shot. So we had probably, 200, 300 people walk through our room over the
course of 2 or 3 hours.
2 hours or something. And the number one sexual position that the couple said was their favorite sexual position is doggy style. Now, I can say when I was in my 20s, doggy style was my favorite, but it's no longer my favorite in my 30s, and I just reached 40, so it's no longer my favorite now. Steve, what is your favorite sexual position?
I just like missionary. I really do. I enjoy the eye contact, the connectivity, the kissing, the conversation, the giggling that all happens from that position. My hands are accessible and available. The breasts are right there. You can do a lot from that position. So lift one leg up, 2 legs up. I just love missionary. It's too versatile. It's where it's at.
Yeah, missionary's pretty classic. And yeah, I think right now that might be my favorite as well. I also like it when you throw me over to my side.
That's the scissor. I think it's a scissor kick. So it's like, I do this to a lot of play partners, and what happens is I go to roll them over, and they just assume the moment I begin rolling them over that I'm moving them to the doggy position. And then I stop them halfway, and then they like, wait, what? What's going on? I never tell them what's about to happen, because I always like to change it up on them. So you're basically on your hip. One leg is really high up, almost on your chest, and the other leg is straight down as if you're standing.
It's kind of like if you're a side sleeper and you have one leg kind of propped up a little bit.
Right. And then with that position, you can reach fairly deep.
I like it when you put me in that position and you're holding my hips and you're hitting and hitting and hitting and pounding and pounding and pounding, and you're just holding my hips, and there's that curve of my hips, and then I can see your waist, and it's just so sexy, so hot.
Yeah. And then you can, as a guy, you can put you can grab like the chest area where the ribs are. And if you grab a hold of that, or you can grab a hold of the ribs, sometimes, the girl likes her face smashed into the pillow. Hey, whatever they like. Someone asked you a question once, what was your favorite sexual position? And you responded, how many people are involved? Because you couldn't answer the question correctly without knowing that first. And they go, really? What do you mean? And then so go ahead, babe, tell them what your favorite sexual position is if it involves more than 2 people.
My favorite sexual position, it really depends. I can't say this is my favorite today, but once upon a time, this was my favorite. When maybe it's 2 females and a male, and I would be 69 with the other female. I would be on bottom, and she would be on top. And she would be getting penetrated doggy style right above my face. That's pretty hot. That's pretty amazing. I highly recommend everyone to give that one a try.
Isn't there a book that you recently came across that talked about like sexual positions or something.
I recently got a book off of Amazon. I got this as a conversation piece for whenever we have like a hotel party, invite people over, something that besides a game that we can talk about that's sexy, right? And so this is 365 days of sexual positions. And some of them are pretty wild and some of them are pretty mild. And yeah, it's just a conversation piece. So what I like to do is ask people, when's your birthday? And then I flip through the book to their birthday. It's like, this is the sexual position that you should be doing. And they look at it, they giggle, they laugh, they say, oh, how could I even try or whatever. All right, guys, we've talked to you about toys and squirting and sexual positions. Let us know if you have any questions or comments by reaching out to us on Instagram, Swingology, a lifestyle podcast, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for stimulating your mind. Thank you so much for listening to Swingology. I'm truly honored to have you as a listener. If you liked what you've heard, consider subscribing to our podcast or connecting with us on social media. The links can be found with the episode show notes. This is Tori Kist, reminding you to stimulate your mind.